Welcome back to the podcast, episode 102. We've got Bryan, Krahn. We had a couple of weeks break where we didn't record anything because of some summer travel, but we should be back with you guys every week now going forward. So Bryan's going to talk about a lot of coaching stuff, some basic practical nutrition things, how to use rules. Our industry sort of says, oh, you're not supposed to use rules, but Bryan is a really creative and effective way of helping individual people with rules that are tailored to them. We're going to get into a discussion of how to get super, super crazy lean for very short periods of time and the context within which we can do that. We get into some human psyche stuff and how people relentlessly rationalize poor choices. And Bryan is also a presenter at our event in mid-September, 14th, 15th, the Canadian Evolve Strength Symposium. I think I said those words in the wrong order. That's okay. And we talk a little bit about the value of going to these events. So stay tuned and enjoy.
Shut up and sit down.
All right, I think that was 5-second countdown Guido gives me. So welcome to our latest episode of the podcast. We actually took about 3 weeks off because of summer vacation stuff. So sorry for the break, guys, but we're back and we'll have something for you every week. And we're returning with his record 5th episode with us. So nobody else has been with us for 5. And I don't know how the fuck this happened, but Bryan Krahn, out of all of the people in the fitness universe, somehow is our favorite person.
We brought back the E-list.
Yeah. And so he's here to share some practical coaching know-how. I got to interrupt myself because we got shit on by an individual for apparently bantering with our male guests differently than our female guests. And I'm going to point this out. We treat our female guests with more respect and kindness. I would never say that to Kelly Coffey or Zoe Lee.
I'd say it to Kelly.
So we call Brad Dieter an idiot all of the time, and we love the guy. He's like the sweetest human ever. So that's just it. Okay,
so what you're basically saying? We don't show our male guests any respect. It's actually the opposite.
We like to beat up on our mother. So anyway, but he's also Bryan is also one of our presenters at our Evolve Canadian Strength Symposium event here in Edmonton, September 14th, 15th. So welcome back. It's good to have you.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
It's like, why do you keep coming back?
I don't know. I asked myself that. Well, certainly all morning I was asking myself that, but you know,
I'm talking to these guys again. Jesus.
I think it's because like we've said it before. Like when we have Canadian guests, we can actually understand some we understand each other, so we can talk more freely.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's some understanding of you're in Calgary, I'm in Edmonton. We all talk and say "hey," and everyone thinks we talk funny.
Bryan, where were you? Where did you grow up? Because you were born in the U.S., weren't you? You grew up there.
No. I grew up in Winnipeg.
Okay, so
even better.
I was of the misconception. I was actually of the misconception you were originally from the U.S. So I knew you weren't originally from Calgary, where you are now.
No. We moved a bunch. As my wife, she went to school forever. So with every stop in the forever journey, we went to the U.S. and we were in Alberta before, and so we bounced around quite a bit.
Yeah, no one wants to go live in Winnipeg. That would have been a tough sell for the wife. Hey, let's go back to my hometown.
Except for July, August. That's what keeps people there.
2 months of the year.
Because it's hot?
Oh, it's perfect. It's hot and dry.
That's true.
Hot,
and the rest of the year, it's one of the coldest places in Canada outside of the Arctic. So
yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, now they got their jets, though, so the people are kind of they're dealing with it.
Yeah.
But even the jets are starting to shit the bed again.
Well, I was going to say, after last year, it's going to be chaos there.
Oh, they had no reason to go out in the first round. That was appalling.
Yeah.
Appalling.
It's Fortnite. Fortnite's been doing it. That was all. That's why Winnipeg made the national news because of Patrick Laine, and a few of them are addicted to Fortnite, so they're getting all fucked up before games and stuff, playing Fortnite till 3 a.m. And they called them out and everything.
It was a big thing within hockey. I trained a kid who just literally drove down to Seattle for the Thunderbirds of the WHL. And now he's given it up, but he loved Fortnite. He was playing tons of this shit. So I don't know.
Who do we have on that was basically I think it was Cav. No, maybe it's Thibodeau. But anyways, he was saying he could tell by how much Fortnite they're playing on their HRV scores, like if they're going to make the pros or not. Like they played too much shit and had too many bad scores.
I can't even remember that conversation.
Maybe it was on a different podcast.
I think that was something that had nothing to do with our podcast. You're mixing shit up.
Anyways, they could like correlate like how well of a shot they're going to have at the next level based on their HRV scores, based on how much they're playing video games. Because it's almost like they're fucking up their training every time they stay up till 3 with the blue light. And then they're competitive, so they're stuck in the sympathetics for so long that they actually have to recover from it. So it's fucked.
Yeah, and that's just something I just don't get. And I even see it in my Gen Pop clients. I just had a guy yesterday, out of nowhere, he said, I've had to quit gaming. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I mean, this is the first I've heard of this. And cause his challenge was always just sticking to the diet and you know, the basics. And he's like, yeah, it was just becoming too much for me. I had to quit gaming. And I just said, oh, that's good. But I'm just in my head. I'm like, what? How does that become debilitating? Like,
dude, have you ever been like addicted to a video game? I used to play World of Warcraft between 10 and 13 years ago. And dude, I wrote an article about this shit. Like seriously, this stuff like.
I guess you would know, yeah.
It takes over your life. So right now, so here's actually something interesting for trainers. If you got any clients who are WoW players, World of Warcraft players, they're re-releasing the original classic stuff. I've got 2 guys who love this shit. One, I got to keep a real close eye on. He's already rescheduled a session because he wants to have some time to play Warcraft. He's still making it a different time. Yeah. But like some of these people are going to be like pretty hooked on this shit. So you got to keep an eye on your people because that's a lot of sitting down and eating crap. And this shit is addictive. This is like drugs.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I can't see how you would be if you're so into the game. You know, I get that, and you lose track of time, you lose track of sleep, and all that shit. And you know, I don't get how you want to eat at the same time. You know, it's not like you're sitting and watching TV or whatever, or binging on a TV show. Because there you're just chilling, presumably. But if you're playing a game and you're all like amped and you're all like into it, like how would it even occur to you to eat? If anything, you'd miss me.
I lost weight. You're playing.
You're more likely though to not want to put the time into cooking and preparing food. So think about like, 10, 12 years ago when this stuff came out, not such a big deal. Sure, you're ordering pizza. Now you got to skip the dishes. So think about that, right? So you have access to convenient, high calorie food, and you get in this loop where you're raiding or you're just doing whatever PvP and you're interacting with other people. It's not like you can pause the game the same way you can pause Super Mario Brothers. So you can stay really in that world, and it becomes a very it's a virtual world with virtual like communities, and you have online.
There's guilds
friends.
And shit.
Guilds, absolutely. And this stuff, people take. Yeah,
I'm serious.
Right.
And so you're like accountable to teams. So like if you're like raiding and you leave, like you'll literally get kicked from the group, and then that's probably even worse for your psyche. Yeah. Like you just got kicked out of your tribe online, totally. And like you lost your tribe in real life because you're fucking playing this game. Like your life's over. Like people have got fucked up from that. Like that's totally real.
So, but this as much as we joke about this, like people are going to get pretty immersed in this classic edition because it's probably like 15, 16 years since this original thing, because they keep expanding it, and so the game changes. But now they're going back to the original one, the option to play this original one, and it's super popular. So you're going to see a massive influx of former players go back to it, some new people discovering it. So if you got someone in your general world who gets into this stuff, maybe they'll just stick around with it, but some people really get sucked in heavy on this stuff. So
yeah, I get it. I mean, one of my big things is that everyone has an addiction, everyone has a vice, you know. So that's true. You know, if that's your thing, just learn how to manage it somehow. But yeah, that never occurred to me. I forgot that there's other people like online who are counting on you.
It sounds crazy, but like that's a real thing. Like even when I was playing MMOs, that's the World of Warcraft world. Like, you can't just leave. Like, you could, I guess, but, like, it literally, like, you can't just, it's at least 2 or 3 hours. And so, like, you need that block of time, and it's usually more. So, like, good luck having a release. Like, I don't know. I was in college. So, I was in college and playing football, and I didn't go to class. So, I had fucking lots of time.
Well, this is going to be frightening, but I wrote this in the article. It was actually kind of the first article I ever wrote that got reshared around and shared on the Personal Trainer Development Center. And I actually talked about this, like over the course of playing that game for 3 years, 3 actual chronological years, I had been logged into my main character for a full year. There's actually a thing that shows you. So I've actually played 1/3 of my life for a 3-year period was actually on this character. That's a level of addiction. So
and you still got the 250.
Well, I wasn't training as consistently then. I actually made a choice that Hey, so I got one or the other. I got like serious commitment to gym stuff, or I can play this. And there was a lot of fun. Absolutely, it was a cool thing, but it was also a lot of negatives. So I said, okay, no, enough of this shit, and I'm done. So,
cold turkey.
Yeah, that's yeah. I mean, there's a tipping point for everything, man. Every day I get amazed, but how people can manage, certain things in their life, like how they can manage an addiction or a passion or something to the point where it's just on the point of becoming utterly debilitating and crashing their entire world down like a house of cards. But they just kind of stay above that point. And
functional alcoholics, like you wouldn't even like some of them are in good shape too. Like you can manage that shit. Not that we're like saying go manage it, but addiction will let you, like, you'll figure it out.
Well, something I think is really important here is the prevalence of people who had previous lifestyle addiction behavior. I mean, before the whole Warcraft thing, I in my mid-20s, we're talking about some hard partying lifestyle stuff, some serious drinking. I used to own a nightclub, like a martini bar, and we were in there after hours. That was when we really did our business. So, and I was into fitness at the time and certainly before it. But you replace negative addictions with a positive one like fitness. So you have so many people walking around, a lot of competitive aesthetic competitors, a lot of like strongmen or powerlifters certainly, but there's a lot of people in a lot of everyday walks of life who replace these negative addictive behaviors with very addictive fitness and nutrition behavior. And while we know that is almost overwhelmingly good, there still are negative aspects of it. So actually that kind of leads to the question. See, we always go off fucking script with you. What do you think are some of the negative stuff that can creep in when people really develop fitness addictions?
Oh, well, certainly, especially if someone is kind of an OCD type. I mean, fitness is just, it's a free-for-all. There's so many things that you can get, so many rabbit holes that you can run down, and so many boxes that you can tick. Yeah. I remember when I was just still trying to compile all this information that I had, like training myself and training others, and all these things I had to look at. I remember I created basically a checklist. Just all the daily practices that I do and all the daily practices that I want a client to do. And it got to be pages and pages and pages of all this shit, whether it's, drink this much water, eat this much protein, have this many vegetables, like you name it. Like, and until it's at that point where it's innate in you and you just don't even have to think about it, like it can really, if someone's OCD, it can really trigger stuff. And I see it a lot sometimes. I can spot it right away in the questions I get from people, like this one. There's just especially too much adherence to a schedule, and there are this many grams of protein or this many, and now you see it in training when people are trying to hyper analyze the training experience. Like, oh, I had 3 reps in reserve. Should I have been more 2 reps in reserve? And I just sit here going, in 10 years, you're going to look back at that question and go, wow, that was good. But I find this industry in particular, the OCD type, for want of a better word, seems to gravitate towards it. And it can be debilitating.
Well, that's a cool thing too, just because now with a lot of the RP stuff and RIR stuff is a lot of it's mentally driven anyway. So like your perception of your RP or IR is solely locked into your mental observation of what's going on. So like if you're OCD, like you're almost like blunting that response and you suck more. Like you almost you get worse.
Oh yeah, completely. Like as soon as you get too into that part of your brain, this effort stops, or it doesn't stop, or it gets suppressed at least. It just
you're thinking through it. It's like, I got to think through this, and you're thinking about your RP during it, and then your intensity more or less will drop. And I'm sure not everyone's like that, but I know when you try to think through stuff, like I end up lifting way worse.
I can tell you one thing: I've never in my fucking lifting life thought about RPE, and yet Bryan will probably agree with me entirely on this. With guys like you and me who've been like in the weight rooms for as long as we have, right? We intuitively have our reps in reserve in mind. We know how many more reps we could get. Your body, but you don't think of it as, oh fuck, I got 2 reps in reserve left. Right? We just did it. Now that people are like classifying this stuff, and it's actually useful for some people.
But even for like squats and deadlifts, like try fucking like 400 feels like 500, feels like 600. They all feel the fucking exact same. So it's just a matter of like effort
for someone who can deadlift over 600 pounds.
But even like in terms of some people, 225 to 315, like that's why you get a lot of people when they do 10 extra reps if you push them. They're like, oh, I was almost done, and then they bang out like an extra 10 if you force them. It's like, oh, you just weren't trying hard enough, and that's it's hard.
Yeah, and like environment changes everything. Like if you're training at, at a very commercial gym, you might not have the same drive. You could train with a bunch of meatheads who are blasting the music and screaming in your ear. Like fuck, like
way stronger. Like you're more likely to pop stuff. But like like when we were in Costa Rica doing our 10 rep maxes, anyways, like I lifted way more, and I was like, oh shit, I should train with people more often, just because that whole tribe thing. But like I tried way harder, and it didn't feel heavy, and at a commercial gym, you're sitting there with depressing music, so you put your headphones on.
Instead of being in your own basement with like your shirt off, arrows on video.
Absolutely, though. I lift way more at home than I do at Good Life because the bench sucks. Someone took my bench mid-set, you know what I mean? They're just like, fuck, and ruins your workout.
And then there's just your individual context. Like I did a first real leg workout yesterday in probably 2 months. Because I was just burning out, and I just started to mail it in and dieting and all that jazz. And just squatting 225, just not having a bar on my back in so long, that felt heavy. And I just went, I did the best reps I could, got whatever. I don't know what my RPE was or my reps in reserve, because it's a totally different context. It's like relearning the lift again, So I think sometimes people, there's so many things to consider that, you can't just plop everything into this, convenient paradigm and whatever. That's what I think.
And I think individuals are going to find their own paradigm because there's so many fitness professionals and so many thought processes about how to train that anyone who's fairly serious about it is going to gravitate. Like, I'll use this as a good example. So I tend to gravitate towards the coaching and thinking of, funny, I guess a lot of the old T-Nation guys, that includes you, Lee Boyce, Dean Somerset falls in that. I definitely gravitate towards a lot of Mike Isertel's thinking in terms of training and volume and stuff like that. Dean is much, much, much more pulled into Pat Davidson's work, Ben House.
But like that's layered with Mike Isertel, pretty much.
And then there are people who really get pulled into, you're more pulled into HRV than I am. Like at me, I'm just like, fuck, I'll see how I feel.
Yeah.
But even that is like, you go in that and you realize, like, if you're actually objective about it, it's like, it doesn't really mean shit. Like, it's just
I kind of laugh. You have to be careful not to include so many things in your process, whether it's HRV or even measuring your fucking heart rate. Like you can't have too many things that will talk you out of working hard.
Absolutely. That's the best way I've ever heard it put.
Because like it sucks, and like me personally, I find really like anything under 4 reps, I start to get scared because not fucking scared, but like I'm
terrified.
I think okay, something might pop.
Yeah.
And once you're in your 40s, you don't have many pops left. You're running out of pops. You're gonna have one big pop, and then you're doomed to not having a bar on your back again. So
then you're sitting in machines the rest of your life, which is like some of that shit's fine. But I like barbells too. So,
however, like higher reps, like that kind of which was something like squatting fucking sucks, but it's that doesn't scare me as much because usually you'll just gas out and make a fool out of yourself, but rarely will you really get hurt because just the loads aren't as high. So I don't know. Like you have to.
I think. Well, especially as you get older, but even as you get better at lifting, if that makes sense. Like I don't know. I see a lot of those metrics talking people out of stuff, like you said. Even like the heart rate stuff is like you can give yourself an excuse to get out of it, or HRV, same thing. And that's where you're kind of looking at a lot of people that are taking this information in after now 4 or 5 years, and it's like they're distilling it down to like you got to work harder. Like all that stuff almost doesn't matter. It does, but it's like such minutia for like 95% of people working out. It's like it doesn't fucking matter.
I think you just have to learn.
I mean, the body's built to adapt. I mean, it's whomever or whatever designed it designed it to, when things are slightly challenged and you didn't get enough sleep or your fucking HRV's a little high, it'll still overcome.
Yeah.
It'll still adapt. Otherwise, we wouldn't have made it this far.
And RP's app is a perfect example. So like there's tracking macros and all that stuff. RP's app is like pretty fucking simple. It's like eat these foods, make sure you're hitting this protein 5 times a day, and like that's fucking it. And you'll get people like, well, what about my 20 grams of protein directly pre-workout and post-workout with how many carbs should I be taking? And like you're saying,
to mix whey and casein
like,
together.
and that's the OCD. It's like literally, man, it doesn't fucking matter. Like RP's making millions of this stuff. They're the best in the business, and they're saying like just fucking eat 5 meals with this much protein. Like you'll be fine. Like you live.
Yep. Yeah,
lift more.
You will make progress. Yeah. So
I love this sort of stuff, and this sort of feeds into one of the questions we did actually have for you, and I'll sort of explain it this way. So one of my favorite things about your advice and your wisdom is the willingness to break away from the technical letter of the research, and yet use simple rules to guide a person to their goal. And sometimes those rules might sort of go against what we say to people. I'll use a common example that you've often cited. We're not supposed to tell people that carbs at night are bad for you. We know that they don't make you fat. But yet, sometimes telling a certain client, all right, don't eat past 9 fucking p.m., because that client is someone who will binge on cookies, the kind of food that they eat. And they like rules. Sometimes people like rules. And I don't think we're doing any harm by giving some of those people rules. So this is something that you do a lot of. There was a post recently, you talked about gremlins, so I wanted you to elaborate on that.
It's been a while since I've seen that movie, but I mean, I do try to do that. I try to make the process as simple as possible for people, especially when I can figure out where their biggest kind of hang up is, so if someone is just a habitual stress eater at night because they have a demanding job and they don't get enough sleep, and that naturally kind of increases your cravings at night. And whenever they blow their diet, it's always when they're like in their underwear at 11:30 at night, fridge open, and they're just rummaging through food. Like if you have them on if you try to get all sciencey and convince them, well, calorie, body doesn't work like that way, and calories you eat at a certain time doesn't matter. That could be enough kind of information to embolden them into thinking that, okay, I can eat at night and make these great choices. But however, you have to remember, if this person is stressed and they're tired and they're eating at night, their capacity to make good choices is diminished. Yeah. And at that point, someone who, habitually kind of eats in the evening is more of a self-medicating thing. Like they're not, that's more what they're looking for, is to have the feeling of stress relief of having something good to eat. So rather than give them some choices that, okay, you can have chicken and broccoli here, or you can, but don't exceed, 250 calories, and give them all these rules to say, fuck it, you can't eat at night because, it's like what your mother said, nothing good happens after midnight, rarely do people make good food choices after midnight. So I'd rather just eliminate their ability to make a choice then. So you can't eat.
Well, and science doesn't take that into account. Like their food environment. Like sorry, science. Like this person can't handle that rule.
And this this is not to invalidate research, because you get the people out there who will just shooting up research. Research no fuck. Research is extraordinarily valuable. It's your starting point. But research is also done on a bell curve. You have what the majority of the population, this is aggregate data over populations, is what will happen. But then the bell curve on either side, you have outliers. You still have to take into account your individual client's psychology and their lifestyle.
Yeah.
And you start with the science. You don't do stupid shit like tell them carbs are going to make you fat. Like insulin, the magical insulin fairy is bad for you, right? Like, no, that shit's not true. But then you apply it individually to that client. You go, okay, well, guess what? You seem to psychologically not do so great on carbs. So, we could have a little bit more fat in your diet. We have a little bit less carbs. If you're feeling good, fuck it, right?
Exactly. And that's where coaching comes in is you very quickly have to figure out how a person's wired and where their natural tendencies are, and just work with how that can work to their success. You kind of double down on that, and the things that go directly against their success, you try to minimize that. So, if someone they just can't eat in the morning for whatever reason. You hear this a lot with women. Oh, I'm not hungry in the morning. Well, then rather than force them to eat breakfast, just say, okay, good, we're not going to eat in the morning. We're just going to do what you normally do. And, you build their diet around their natural eating patterns. And if someone just makes horrific food choices at night because they're stressed to the max all day, and then they come home and there's nothing prepared, and they got the thought of like cooking at 11:30 isn't, they're not feeling it. You work the other way. So, okay, we're not going to, after 8 p.m. you don't eat. We're going to build your diet around eating more during the day. And so when you come home, you have one option. It's just whatever, diet, Coke Zero, whatever. I don't know. Like you build these rules in that are really just built around their natural way of traveling. And
those rules have to work for that person too, because let's use this example. You've got someone who you're saying, all right, well, you can't do this. And that's the sort of person that's going to go fucking do it because they were told not to. Then they're still eating at night. Okay, well, that doesn't work. You got to find a different approach to it, right? So it's not that, hey, just telling someone don't eat at night fixes all the problems. It's got to be something that'll actually fucking adhere to.
Yeah, because there's so many ways to reach the goal, provided basic physiological parameters are met. So, I mean, I'd be stupid if I try to waste my time trying to contort them to some, meal system or give them a bunch of, frankly, information that they really don't need, or give them a bunch of facts, a bunch of data. This is what you're currently doing. I'm going to take it and make it better, so it's basically like your lifestyle, but more in tune to hitting a goal. And then you just have to tweak as opposed to making someone, making a non-breakfast eater into a breakfast eater or making so I find that's the heart and soul of coaching is just finding these little things to double down on and things to avoid in someone's current practice.
Well, something you brought up there is interesting too. Yeah. Is like that whole idea of like throwing research at him and stuff. And usually, if you understand coaching, that's generally a good way to start a fight. Basically, like there's no one who's not going to get defensive about it. Like they don't give a shit about your fucking research. If they do, that's great. But I mean, that's the coaching element of it. But like, don't try to back up. Like you got to eat in the morning because of this, and this, and this. Like, just make it work.
I'll give you a good example of this. I've had clients before. We've all had clients who think that aspartame is poison. They think it's fucking cancer-causing poison. Okay, cool. Yeah. Guess what? Okay. That is not someone I'm going to tell to go drink Diet Coke. Like,
that's their teddy bear.
You don't fucking go there. Right?
They're identifying with that. Like, you basically you attack that. You basically just attack their identity.
And you've compromised your relationship, your trust with them. No, fuck, don't go there, right? And like, for God's sakes, and this is one of my big pet peeves. Like, sometimes, every once in a while, our industry goes on blast about vaccines. That has nothing to fucking do with us.
No, we're not talking about vaccines.
That has nothing to fucking do with us, right? So, guess what?
Half our listeners are fucking gone now.
Right? But no, that's my point, is like, don't fucking go there. Like, we are not doctors. It has nothing to fucking do with us. We're not changing anybody's mind. So, don't go having those conversations with clients. I've worked with anti-vax clients. And guess what? I don't fucking go there. They'll bring it up, and I'm like, okay, cool, let's do this next set, right? Like, fuck no, I'm not getting into that shit with them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many things you can focus on that actually matter. Like, to get in the weeds with stuff like that. Like, I have clients all the time who are like, well, I don't like any artificial sweeteners. I'm like, well, fuck, fine. That's great. We certainly don't have to include them. I mean, there's plenty of foods that don't have artificial sweeteners.
No, there's you have to have 10 grams of fucking sucralose. What is it? Sucralose in your fucking diet, right?
My wife's like, she's not like that. She doesn't not like them, but she swears she can taste them and stuff. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Sorry, she's gonna hear that, but like,
does she still listen to them?
My wife does listen to it, because when I made fun of her for that like compliment sandwich bullshit, we had this like thing where I called my wife out, and she's like, "Oh, you don't think I listen to that?" Hey, I was like,
Shit. Well, and I've had very, very smart, very like intuitive clients say, when I drink some of the aspartame, I get a headache. Like, what am I going to do? Tell them that they're wrong? Say, no, you're fucking wrong. Like, how do I know? Maybe
they do.
Maybe they do. Maybe it does cause it. Like, who cares?
That happens. It happens to a few people. Some people get headaches when they drink the stuff. Don't drink it. Like, fuck.
I want to test that out. We should have
there's
taste tests.
All kinds of foods that like people are allergic to weird shit. They have reactions to weird shit. Guess what?
Don't eat it.
You can have a reaction to aspartame. Doesn't mean that it's bad for everybody, but like some people can have it, so that shit is legitimate. Fine, fuck. Sometimes it's in their heads. Okay, it exists. Don't make them drink it. So.
Well, yeah, and at the end of the day, as you guys know, there's like levels of expertise and things, and we're basically at the bottom rung. And your average general physician's a little bit higher, but they're certainly not an expert in things like,
anything.
Like stuff like artificial sweeteners. That's not their job.
Yeah.
And but when you get to the very top of the pyramid, like I believe some of the best work being done on like the effects of artificial sweeteners is done in Israel, and I've read that things I've read coming out of, I think it was in nutrition, saying they just don't know. So these are people who are at the tip of the spear of
They have
researching
no
the
idea.
effects of artificial sweeteners on people. And they're like, well, we think it's safe, but we're not 100% sure. So,
Why
you know,
Israel?
Meanwhile, the people who
Yeah.
are freaking out about our artificial sweeteners, some of
Yeah.
them are smoking, they're drinking alcohol.
well, that's a whole
Playing
other
World
thing.
of Warcraft.
God only knows what
One
that
day
kind
out of
shit,
every
right?
3.
So it's like, okay, fine. Like, is this stuff really the worst thing that you're even ingesting?
Yeah, like if you're a trainer, your zone of expertise is teaching a freaking barbell curl and like helping someone like stick to a meal plan. I mean, you're not going to be you don't know the nuances of the research into all these things. So just stay to your lane and focus on and get really good at what you're supposed to be good at. So,
It's just funny that we bring up diet, whatever,
Yeah.
soda, because it seems like that comes up every 5 years. But it's just like the reoccurring like keto, or like it's always one of these fucking things. And it does, like you said, it always comes down to context and actually just be a coach and be able to disseminate some of this stuff, because like, all that stuff doesn't really matter. Like it does contextually, maybe 1 out of 10 people, but then fucking figure it out at that point.
Yeah, and I feel bad for the average person because they get hammered by all these articles and shit on the internet, shit on Instagram of all these people who are really emphatic and they've got the answer, and meanwhile they don't know shit. But they're just all this information gets in people's brains, and you get total analysis paralysis, and that goes back to why I like rules, because there's no analysis. If I tell someone, okay, we're not going to eat after 9, like fuck all the the context behind it or the reasoning. It's just let's have this rule that's very easy to manage. It says yes or no. It's a stop sign.
And hopefully you know your stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
And talking about like not knowing shit, we wanted to go here about the low calorie stuff, but you recently mentioned comments by John Meadows relating to getting basically super lean, and in order to do so, you need to be super low in calories.
Yeah.
Would you break down why we need super low calories here, and the fears and misinformation about essentially getting this low, and like kind of define what low is in the context we're talking about?
Yeah, and when you mentioned that question, I was like, there's a huge dose of context there. We're talking the context of that was he was talking about getting 90s lean. And so everyone who was born in the 90s is like, what the heck is that? But like 90s lean, that's an era of bodybuilding where guys it's probably where bodybuilding kind of peaked in terms of that combination of size and just being not just lean, but dry. Now guys are a lot bigger, but they're not as, whatever. It's a whole other argument. But what he was talking about is getting to that level of body fat where you're just, you're a heartbeat away from dead. Like you're that lean. And he described his diet leading up to that. It was like 3 weeks of just egg whites, and I think his carbs was a little bit of diet ketchup, and that's it.
I'm gonna pause for a sec. This is a disclaimer. So, like, for anybody listening who like just wants to lose a little bit of body fat, this is absolutely absolutely not what we're telling you to do. This is the context of getting stage lean for bodybuilding.
But it could work.
Yeah, that's definitely what I want to emphasize. The context when I mentioned that was, this is getting not just lean, this is getting like ripped to no body fat on your body. Like you're just basically done. So to reach that level, you have to go into a place where it's just long term it would be very unhealthy, but short term, again, context is everything. If you live eat a healthy diet with more than enough calories most of the year, and then you go on a restrictive diet, then you have a little phase where you go on a ridiculously restrictive diet, it's not going to freaking kill you. I mean, because it's sandwiched between this year-long or multi-year lifestyle that's extremely healthy. So if you just jump into a hyper low calorie diet because you want to bounce off a lot of fat that you gained on a vacation, well, no, that's a little less healthy. So,
especially if it's cyclical and you're basically classical yo-yo dieting, right?
Yeah,
you do this crash, you can't sustain it, you end up consuming more calories. That kind of pattern long term is extremely dangerous. I think one of the big fears is when language like metabolic damage first got thrown around, and people were really scared. Oh shit! If I diet, it's going to damage my metabolism. I'm fucked forever. And the research has borne that out to not actually be very.
Well, they've been saying like it's healthy metabolism for it to fucking slow down because it's you're not eating, so like it's able to variably go with the calories.
And when you are dieting, two things are going to happen. Two major things anyway. One is you are going to lose some lean body mass. That is part of it. Hopefully, you maintain as much as you can. But when you're really restrictive in your calories to get leaner, your NEAT, your non-exercise activity thermogenesis goes down a lot. This is a massive thing.
Yeah.
If you're someone who's a fairly active, pacing, gesture person and you're into a calorie deficit, you don't move as much.
John was probably literally just sitting there sweating.
Yeah. Oh, it's funny. I mean, I sometimes miss some of the old messaging boards where, where you could, see how bodybuilders really live. And
I think we talked about this before.
I don't know. Like, you see now people are like, oh, I don't want to go below 1,200 calories because, all these horrible things will happen. My metabolism will crash and I'll lose this metabolic function, blah, blah, blah. And then, I don't know, like when a bodybuilder is at the end of their rope, I mean, often they're well below 1,000 calories, and it's temporary. It's a couple weeks and they're hating it and they can barely move and they can barely train. And it's not fun, and it's not a lifestyle, and it's not something one would aspire to. It's just a necessary evil to reach a very, very temporary physical zenith. So it's like you have to always keep these contextual things in mind. But I just think it's funny when did the 1,200 calorie thing become a thing? Like now that's like that magic number.
Is that a thing? I haven't even heard. But I had that in my head, so I guess
it is a very common number that gets tossed around.
Yeah.
That somehow, if you actually hear it in context of women more. If somehow you put someone on you hear about coaches putting people on 1,200 calorie diets, and the other coach is like, oh fuck, that's gonna give them metabolic damage. That's terrible. Well, first of all, a lot of small women probably should be eating. I mean, this is not like everybody, but there are going to be some small women who are not physically active where about 1,200 calories actually should be about maintenance for them, right?
I would probably put that a lot higher.
If they're at 11, it's not going to fucking kill them. That's just our current society, like all these meals, everything, portion size, fucking alcohol, has conditioned women to be eating the same portions as men who on average are heavier, they're just bigger. Yeah. And I think this actually sort of really fucks with a lot of women who, especially if there's alcohol involved, because then they're trying to drink and keep up with men, which is terrifying.
They have to be perfect. Like this is the problem, is that 1,200 calories, you're saying there's probably a lot of inactive, we'll use females because they're smaller, that should be on 1,200 calories, and they can blow it out of the water with 3 drinks. So, I mean, they have to be fucking perfect to stay thin. That's why there's a lot of people that are overweight. Because 1,200 isn't a lot when you contextually put it in a day where you're eating 3 meals.
And you get this message out there that, on the other side of it, it's like, it's impossible. Therefore, people should just accept that they're going to be, quote, fat or overweight. And I don't love that either. I think you actually just have to be conscious of the fact that, okay, this is your physiological body. We live in a modern society that makes it really, really hard. But these are your maintenance needs. These are your sustenance needs. And our ancestors survived. Again, they didn't live as long as us, but they survived on an activity level and a calorie intake that was more or less maintenance level. Like obesity has really only exploded within, the last 2 generations, I think, is really about where it's happened. So no, we don't need the lattes. No, we don't need the portion sizes. And especially for smaller women, you don't need all this stuff. And I think it's tougher psychologically, but at a certain point, you kind of have to say to yourself, okay, wait a second. I cannot eat the same food as a 200-pound male if I'm a 120-pound woman.
Yeah, but another really big thing, though, is let's say someone just parachuted into this conversation and heard me blabbing about egg whites and stuff, they would think, well, that's what I got to do. That's what and if you don't know all the context, if you don't know how a person normally lives most of their life and their approach to food and all, it's very dangerous to jump on someone else's diet. Like you have to know, not only just your own physiology and your own eating habits, your own needs, before you jump onto someone else's diet, what are they trying to do? Where are they coming from? What's their goal? What's going on behind the curtain?
Well, perfect example. Andrew is you're 260. How many calories do you eat a day?
I have no fucking clue.
Well, I eat 4,000. I eat 4,200-ish. I have bumpers, but I'm 230. But the context is I have muscle and I work out. I wouldn't tell anyone to eat 4,200 calories. You get fucking, if you don't have my life, you're going to get big. And fat.
I stay very stable at weight. Any given time, unless I'm aggressively trying to pursue something, I stay very, very stable. I had one of those Instagram Q&As recently, and someone asked me very specifically, it's like, how do you get from 207 pounds to 220?
Halloween candy.
And of course, my answer was, well, first of all, I'm assuming you mean muscle because they didn't specify. But, and I gave him the basics, calorie surplus, training, blah, blah, blah. And then I said that what actually pushed me from 250 to 260, it was kind of like this October, November time frame. I had a whole bunch of Halloween chocolate. I buy it every year. No kids come to my door.
Yeah.
So I end up...
Classic, I know kids are going to come to my door.
And I eat basically 2 full-size chocolate bars a day for a month or whatever. And I just was trained like a maniac. And shit, I gained 10 pounds in the space of about 2 months. It was lean. People are going to be like, that's bullshit. No, it was. It was super lean.
You finally ate in a surplus.
And I stayed in there. And guess what? I just have been hovering at 260 for maybe a year and a half or so. And I maintain it really well.
But you parachute in that conversation.
Yeah. Well, that's, again, that's another rabbit hole. I make fun of this probably a little too much on social media is, I'm... so I'm 160 pounds, so, and I want to get to 170, and I've done the math, and that's, an extra 250 calories a day. So I'm just going to add, a large egg and half a banana on top of my maintenance calories, because everyone's got that dialed in right to the fucking nth degree, and that'll be enough to get me to this new body weight. And I just sit here and go, where did this come from? Gaining weight it's
hard, man.
Hard. Gaining real weight is hard. If you want to go from 160 to 170, well, you should eat like you want to be 200.
Yeah.
And blow way the fuck past 170. And
when you mentioned something there, you got your maintenance dialed in, you push your maintenance higher, then everything upregulates, and then it bumps up even higher. You have to eat like you're 200 because your body's smart. It does not want to gain weight. You probably got to eat 600-700 calories.
Oh yeah, and you got
2 chocolate bars a day.
There are no lean gains, man. I mean, you have to just gain, and then you have to hold it a bit. That's another thing people don't do properly. Is they hit a new body weight. They're like, all right, done. Time to mini cut this shit off. And it's just no, you have to stabilize it. The point you're at right now, Andrew, where you just whatever, no matter what you eat, you're gonna get on the scale and you're gonna be within a pound or two of the same thing.
Exactly.
That's the perfect place to go in either direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I'm gonna get ripped, boom, or now I want to gain weight because you're fuck, you're ready. It's it's when your scale's all over the place. You want to get things kind of stabilized for a bit. That's why I think mini cuts have their place. Definitely, especially they're psychologically they're very helpful. But the whole mini bulk thing, what the fuck? Where do people come up with this?
Here's another thing too for anybody who's been gaining weight or wants to, and this is actually kind of important, is when you gain 10 pounds or whatever, you feel heavier. You feel fucking heavier. You feel in your joints. You feel in your knees, especially when you get to kind of into the 225, 250, 260 area. Yep. It takes a little time to get used to walking around at that new weight. So if you put on 20, 30, 35 pounds fairly quickly. Now, if that's a 6 foot tall guy with a really wiry frame who puts on 30 pounds of lean muscle because it's his first 8 months of training and he's been eating, that's fine. You can handle that, no problem. But you start getting into bigger weights for your frame, you're going to feel those 10 pounds. And it doesn't always feel good. You feel heavy, you feel slow. You have to take a little time to get used to it. Now I walk around, I feel great. But
little time is 6 months.
No,
I would say because I'm at 6 months and I've gained 8 pounds.
It's not that long, I find, but it takes a while. It's not a month, and for 10 pounds, you really probably are going to want to get used to that weight for a little while. If you take someone who's 250 and they go on a big fucking cycle with a lot of crazy shit, and all of a sudden they blow up 30 pounds or shooting insulin, all this crazy crap, they're going to feel like death at 280. They gain 30 pounds. That's going to feel fucking terrible if you put that on in several months. But again, this is some pretty advanced and specific shit that doesn't apply to most of our listeners. So,
well, yeah, that nth degree, yeah. But even just gaining, 20 pounds over your target weight, especially as you get older, I hate being the way I feel. Just when I'm quote unquote bulking, I don't even really aggressively bulk anymore. But it's because you look bad. I mean, you're a vain bastard like me because you look bad. You don't move well, and just you go up your flight of stairs and you're breathing heavy. It's embarrassing. But there's just no better way to add lean mass than to just add some fat mass and just get bigger and own it, settle in, and then diet it off.
Okay, Andrew's pointing at me, but it's basically because we're talking about human psyche stuff and you gotta get used to it. But and he dives through all this stuff. A recent post Bryan posts all the time. Quote, if I could somehow hack into the human psyche and scrub one feature from programming, it's our unrelenting ability to rationalize poor choices. End quote. What do you usually see here, and how does it interfere with fitness programs?
Well, I mean, much of my clientele is Gen Pop, and Gen Pop typically wants fat loss. Yeah. But people are certainly at that average or that mainstream level. People are pretty bright. Like they're a lot more well read than ever, and they get these things in their head. And like a classic thing is like no one wants to feel like they fucked up, and no one wants to feel guilt and feel that they screwed up and that they can't handle a plan. So, a very common psychological defense mechanism is to rationalize that behavior and I meant to do that. The whole Pee Wee Herman. So in the context of fat loss, you have somebody who's on a diet and they blow it, like they just whatever, they give in. It's pizza night with the boys or whatever, and they just crush it and they feel terrible at first, but then they're like, you know what? I was feeling flat at the gym anyway, and I could tell that my RPE wasn't matched. I don't know.
That's a great example.
Yeah, therefore I needed that food, or I could tell I wasn't burning as many calories. I wasn't feeling as warm. So I had that huge cheat meal. And now I'm just running red hot. So therefore, I increased my endogenous T3. Yeah. So I really needed that massive bolus of carbs. It's always a bolus, massive bolus of carbs to like upregulate my metabolism and increase leptin. Leptin 10 years ago.
That's
leptin
a massive bolus of bullshit.
Yeah, and you just sit there going like, so. What? First of all, what are you measuring? Are you measuring your blood work? Are you seeing what your T3 levels are like before and after said binge? Are you measuring your leptin? And that rockin' workout you had the next day? Yeah, because you ate a bunch of food, you filled out, you stored a bunch of glycogen, a bunch of salt, a bunch of water. Of course, you're stronger. You look better because all of a sudden you're filled out, and whenever you have a big cheat meal, you pee a lot, so you peed out a lot of water. Of course, you look better, but all this rationalizing negative behavior, that's a big thing to overcome. Like my clients who accept that, sometimes I just break down and I have a cheat meal, and they accept it as a mistake that they're working on, they do much better. All of a sudden they cheat way less because they're like, you know what, this is my thing. This is the thing I got to battle against. Especially when they do stuff like, they go home, like they go visit their families, and their diet goes to hell. When I help them connect the dots, that they're not weak, they're just going back home into their old, way of traveling and their old patterns, and it's very tough to break. And they're, what they're doing is normal. It's not productive, but it's normal. Those are the people who typically get a lot more success because they're like, yeah, this is a simple psychological thing that I got to deal with. This is my little battle that I got to work on probably for the rest of my life. But once you start trying to, make yourself feel better by bamboozling with bullshit, like, I had to overfeed to stimulate this metabolic process, like that's when you never get better.
Well, because and like you said, they're well read, so they'll search for they'll find their answer, whatever that answer ends up being.
Yeah. You see it all the time in bodybuilding. Oh man, I really needed that cheat meal. It's like, no, dude, you really wanted that cheat meal, and that's fine.
Yeah,
it's fucking fine. I mean, I'd question your intelligence if you didn't want it. But it's just don't fool yourself.
Well, especially when, like you said, people are working with you. So, like, if you don't have the information, you can't create a strategy or even figure it out, because if they're hiding it or doing that, then you're at a loss of information. And
yeah, I'm amazed at how people will beat themselves up because, I was traveling and I just couldn't stick to the diet, and I'm like, yeah, 'cause it's fucking hard.
Absolutely,
it's hard. Don't feel, don't feel bad. I mean, it's you didn't do yourself any favors, but don't beat yourself up. This shit is hard. You're changing time zones. You're sleeping in different beds. You're around different food, different stimulants. It's a difficult thing that you're gonna have to work on, that we all work on. Very few people are perfect robots.
Well, especially if it's the traveling one's a good one, because there's a difference between I travel all the time, then you probably should figure it out, or I traveled once and I fucked it up. It's like, well, that's not a regular part of the equation. But if someone who has these goals and is traveling for work all the time, it's probably better to figure out something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an excellent point. Like, there's a big difference between vacation travel and like business travel because business travel is typically confined within a work week.
Yeah.
Then you want to try to make your life on the road as close to your normal life as you possibly can, and find those, like that one restaurant you go to, that has like a very, really clean meal or whatever, that one hotel that's close to the gym, that kind of shit. So you could get into a pattern because the pattern is everything. But going on a vacation or going, give yourself some slack. Do the best you can.
You don't need to rationalize that one.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people come back from vacation. It always depresses me. Like, they feel so bad because, I gained a bunch of weight. It's like, it's temporary, especially if you were in a good metabolic place before you went. All that weight you gained, even if you ate your ass off for an entire week and gained 15 pounds, it'll be gone within 7 days of just returning to your previous eating pattern. So that's how the body works. I mean,
I think like I pissed out like 6 pounds coming back from vacation overnight.
Yeah.
Just like like getting home in the afternoon and then like eating, but then getting back into regular schedule, regular temperature, regular humidity where you're at, and it's a lot.
Totally. Yeah, I was just down south for a week, and just it's funny looking at pictures when you arrive, and you're all like, whatever, all relatively lean, you're lean and whatever. And then the day you're leaving, you're like, whoa, I'm pregnant.
We had that. So we went to a bachelor party in Mexico when I was younger, and there was this. I remember because they're on our plane. They were younger than us. We were like 25. They're like 19, 20, and they were just fucking shredded. Like, you could tell, like they and by literally like 3 days into it, we didn't even recognize them. They were just so puffed up. I'm like, oh man.
That's why one of the worst things you can do is book like an all-inclusive of some kind right after the end of a long diet. Because, oh my God, it can be hard on your head if you don't know what's going on, because you will gain 25 pounds.
Oh yeah.
And that's one of those situations where there's this old myth in the bodybuilding industry that, right after show, you're most anabolic, and therefore people just like crazy fuckers. And then they think that they're like, a lot of this stuff is like muscle mass. No, you are going to soak up body fat like something else.
Oh, man. Oh God, that's funny. Yeah, you're the most anabolic right after a show. Yeah, well, what were you running going into the show? 'Cause it's still in your system, dude. So that Graham test and all that trend, it's still there. So of course you're anabolic. That's one of my favorite things is when you see somebody who's dieting, especially if they're kind of new to it, they're dieting for whatever thing, a bodybuilding show or a photo shoot, and they're about 2 weeks away, and they look great. They're getting a little tired of it, but they look good, and they're like. They always say, yeah, I love how I look right now, and I just want to maintain this.
Like that.
You try to be, positive to them. You're like, yeah, you can maintain that. And then always you see them a week after, and they're just, whatever, just a grease fire. It's like, there's a reason they call it a peak. Because you're not supposed to maintain that shit.
No. And if you've got somebody like, there's natural competitors, there's untested competitors. You get the natural ones. You're down in that kind of state of leanness. That shit is messing with your hormones bad. You do not want to live there. Guys, your testosterone is in the toilet. Your libido's gone. Like, that's not a good place.
My buddy Ryan, natural bodybuilder, he like did his blood work through it. Like, he was like low test.
Yeah.
Like it fucked up all his stuff, and I don't think it recovered for at least 4 or 5 months.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
I know a few people who've been through that shit. Yeah, that doesn't sound like a very fun place to be. I've never dieted for show. I've never been down that lean, so I don't have a clue what that feels like. But
it's interesting. Like, they have done studies on that, and you don't even when they're extreme diets on natural competitors, they don't really lose much lean mass. It's surprising. So, like, the whole you lose muscle thing is a bit of a myth.
Especially on low test. Like, they're like, I don't have testosterone, I'm losing muscle. I think that's been debunked, too. Like, you don't necessarily need a lot of test to build muscle.
No, you don't need much.
As long as you're within physiological ranges, right?
No, even low. Yeah. Even low, they were, like, they had a study where they cut out GNHR. Anyways, they had a stop on it, and they still gained almost just as much muscle as the guys on the regular.
That actually makes sense when you consider that women, relative to their size, can build muscle fairly comparably to men. People are going to be like, what? Think about the average physical frame of a woman. You have to do it in the context of relative size of frame. So there's obviously a big difference there on average. But women have nowhere near the level of testosterone we do, and they build muscle relatively well. It's just that the sheer size of the big guys and their genetic potential to put on a lot of muscles, like, changes the perception of the ability of men to women to build muscle. Women build muscle very, very well, and they do it without a lot of testosterone, so that actually stands to reason.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's the whole testosterone muscle building thing is a bit overstated, but certainly
more's better.
More's better.
Super
like
normal,
that, there is that part. Like,
super normal amounts.
Well,
super
yeah,
normal
then,
physiological amounts. That's a whole different story. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
but like natural test boosters, you know, like taking Tribulus in fucking supplement stores.
that
does
leave my 19-year-old self alone.
Right.
I had boners in the morning at 19 because of those test boosters.
Well, if you don't have boners in the morning and you're 19, then come on. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe I was low.
Yeah,
I
that's probably false equivalency right there. Quick comment on test stuff, though. There are actually a handful of things, if you are deficient in them, it can actually really help with your testosterone levels. If you're deficient in, well, Brian, you actually probably know this list better than I do, but I think zinc, vitamin D.
Zinc, D3, fat, saturated fat, apparently.
Yeah, sleeping.
Sleeping. Oh, sleeping is huge.
Shit, I wrote about this recently. I just wrote an article that actually mentions that.
That's how people get. That's how people in the States have been getting subscriptions. They just like sleep deprive themselves and go get a. There's a reason.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like that's the best thing about steroids, and Dan Duchaine had this great quote is like dieting without steroids is like dieting without a net. So it's just if you have that anabolic, safety net, you can do a lot of dumb shit. You can do hours of cardio. You can eat next to nothing. You can do the egg whites and ketchup diet. Like if you have this anabolic safety net, you can do all these things and not quote unquote suffer. Suffer being an extreme word. Yeah. So yeah, that's the biggest.
And that goes back to what we've been talking about this whole time is context, and a lot of that stuff. Like you said, you're trolling back door bodybuilding forums, like that stuff doesn't make it out to the magazine article about losing fat over 12 weeks and eating 900 calories. Like that doesn't make it out there, and it's fine. Like it shouldn't. Like those guys are going to ruin their reputations, but like there's a lot of stuff that gets left unsaid, and the people who know what to look for know how to look for it. But like the general public can't sift through that shit.
But now it's funny. Now people get all this information, and not to turn this into steroid jock talk, but I mean like what young people, what they know about anabolics, or if they think they know, that's even worse. What they think they know is pretty scary, and what people take just for a local bodybuilding show. I don't know. These things they come across my desk sometimes. I'm like, whoa, that's
a big pet peeve of mine, because you get some coaches, and I'll put this shit on blast. And they conveniently are the ones who also supply the drugs. And they're putting men's physique guys on probably 4 or 5 different compounds, plus a few peptides. These guys are on insulin and growth hormone. It's like, holy shit. This stuff is way more than like 90s bodybuilding.
You know what's getting worse? You know what's worse, though, to see it is the powerlifting world. It's like, I'm on this program. I bet deadlift went from 400 to 585 for 5. And it's like, was it the program? And like, so that's that whole idea of like, they're selling programs on this shit too. It's like, wow. So I think that's where the ethics.
I love this shit. There's one guy I know, and he's pretty wild. So he's just like loading up to do some crazy amounts of lift for it's an untested federation. I think he's an equipped lifter on top of it. And I see him one day and his eyes are yellow. Like, holy fuck. Right? Like, what have you done to your liver? He's on so much halo test and anadrol that
God.
Scary. Pretty strong.
He's pretty strong.
So that's another thing. If you see someone with yellow eyes, like just assume like they're either their diet's very insufficient in some micronutrients, but if they have lots of muscles, they probably.
And to be explicit, anyone who doesn't quite follow what yellow eyes means, it means your liver is jaundiced and it's not functioning very well because it's been under so much stress due to metabolizing these really, really toxic compounds. And oral steroids. So
a little jaundice never hurt anyone.
Jesus Christ. There's so many great titles we could call this episode that just everybody's going to be freaking out about. But let's bring it back to the reason why we actually timed this episode, because we've had every one of our presenters, actually except Dean Somerset, we haven't been able to time him. But everybody else we've gotten on the podcast in advance of mid-September our event. So I know you're still working on what you're going to talk about. It's a polite way of saying he's been procrastinating.
Not what we talked about today.
But You know, you've spoken at a lot of these things. I first met you in Kansas City, my first ever one of these kind of major events, and you know, and you and I think have actually attended several together. We've been in Calgary twice at 2 RP things, and I think it was like there's been a couple other ones. So, you know, what do these things do for you personally, and what do you see as the value for people going to these events?
Well, you know, I used to attend, you know, kind of conferences a lot when I was kind of just getting my feet wet in the industry and figuring out what I want to do. And the biggest thing is you see all these different areas where, you know, people can earn a living and make a difference. And you can kind of find ways where your own personal skill set, if you've identified that, where you can use that to, you know, advance your career and help people. Because it can be very daunting. I mean, like I listen to someone like Dean talk, and I'm like, how the hell could I ever like do that? Like, how much education would I have to like put myself through and hopefully absorb to even just have his base of knowledge, much less his base of experience. So that's really intimidating. But then you see somebody else who's doing something a little bit different. Maybe they're just more, you know, whatever, doing like online coaching, or they're doing more whatever, group training, whatever. All these different avenues where you can take a passion and a skill set and make a difference and earn a living. So I think that's one of the best things about these things is you just see opportunities, and you can see someone like you can kind of emulate yourself after to a degree.
Well, and we were saying that even before, like when we're talking about like why this was important, even for me to start, was because that same structure of like finding your place in industry that you think is just training, there's so much more, is that I realized that within the first 3 hours of mine. And so we needed to bring something for people here, just because like I don't think, especially if you're in Edmonton or Calgary, you have to travel a lot of these places to even accept that, and the conference might suck. So we just decided to put out a badass one here that we could bring that atmosphere to the people that we want to have that experience. And I don't think everyone does have that experience, and the ones that do end up going places usually if they can capitalize on finding where they fit. But you don't know where you fit if you're not exposed to it. Yeah,
because the industry is still just in its infancy, and there's just so many different ways where, well, one of my big things is that everything is connected, and people sometimes, especially coaches, do themselves a disservice by always focusing on whatever, the training program or the diet or the habits or the lifestyle. All of this stuff is connected, and if something is falling apart, everything else suffers. So you can have someone on the best diet and follow the best meal plan, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, if their lifestyle isn't in check, you know, if they, you know, not sleeping enough, or if they're whatever, everything else suffers. So I find like the more, there's so many different areas where you can affect change and you can make somebody better, and you can like target something that needs to be addressed. And I mean, just in the last 5 years, like the way the industry has grown and all these different niches that have come up, it's fascinating. And just every 5 years, it seems to double. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if nothing else, when you go to a conference like this, you kind of just, all I see is opportunity. And even as like, when I'm presenting, I'm looking like, wow, if I incorporate this into my business, you know, because that works with me and I agree with that, and it stokes my fire and I can learn more, I can, you know, be that much better.
It's when you go to these things, it's also what you put into them is what you get out. I know a lot of people will sit quietly and absorb the information, and that can be great. When I first met you, no one in the industry knew who the fuck I was. Just showed up down there with our friend Hannah Gray, who's one of the speakers and one of our team at this event, and Dean Somerset, right? Yeah. And so I just started meeting people at this event, got talking to the various presenters. I'm really good friends with a lot of the people who spoke at that first one. And it just opened my eyes to what other people were doing. And I'd up to that point just been a trainer who just pounded sessions. Like I was a session producing monster and successful in that realm. Lots of experience. But this just opened my eyes to stuff. It wasn't too long after that Dean and I started talking, doing the podcast. So that's kind of become this really cool, fun vehicle to network with our friends and new people. And that's been awesome. We now have this event. I've gotten more into the online space. I started writing for my own website. That opened up the opportunity. And the network where Danny Sugar reached out to me, we started talking. And she's like, hey, do you want to come write for T-Nation?
It's because it opened your eyes up.
Holy like, fucking like, hell. And then so brought Dean down to the Kansas City Fitness Summit the following year. He met up with Mike T. Nelson and Mike Dola. All of a sudden, he's partnered in a Stronger You project. And then now he's involved with Stronger Experts. Like, if you embrace this stuff and meet people, connect, get them on fucking Facebook, get phone numbers, get email addresses. It's amazing what you can do in this world.
And don't get bombed and be an idiot.
Well, getting bombed can be really fun too, but
just don't be an idiot.
Well, and it's also cool because when you meet people who are at a higher level, that sounds terrible.
No, it's true.
A higher
it's
level,
true.
they're in a career than you.
Yeah, they're advanced.
Yeah, you very quickly, when you get to know them, very quickly you find out all the things they failed at and all the things, their missteps and how their road has been, and it's very it kind of stokes your fire because you're like, wow, I'm not such a loser after all. Everyone else hasn't had this meteoric rise. Everyone's had their ups and downs and had to redefine themselves and tried things that didn't work. And
I think a lot of the times you even look at, and we've noticed this with our podcasts, is because we've met a lot of these people now that at a certain point I was like, holy fuck, like look what they're doing, but they're not too far removed. Yeah. Like especially in the fitness industry, and even if you look at monetary, how much money, it's not that far removed from where a lot of the trainers are. They just don't see it that way because they think everyone's up here. I'm making a big pedestal when really it's like literally a few years and a few good connections and then just hard work, and a lot of it's nothing that is unattainable by any means. Like the PhD thing and like that realm, you got to get a PhD and be really specified in it. But like outside of that, a lot of the opportunities you don't need a PhD or a master's to do half that shit.
No, just really just have to double down on what you're good at, what what stokes you, and then and hate the word, but then you got to grind.
Yeah, you can't be Greg Knuckles. You have to literally go into the research and get your PhD and then do Stronger by Science. But there's a lot of people who
Greg's warm up weight would actually kill Brian. Brian would be in the hospital trying to use his warm up weight. So
I wouldn't even.
Brian's at 225 or 10 RPE. Doesn't even know.
See, I'm old and I'm smart. I would show up and I'd see his warm up weight and I'm like,
Greg's a kid. Greg is younger than all of us, right? This motherfucker is smart, but he is a kid by comparison.
How old is he?
He's in his mid-20s.
What the fuck?
Yeah. I think he's I don't know, maybe he's 26 or something.
He's he hasn't trained, he's been training obviously, but his new thing is I just started getting back into it. I got to push for a big PR total. It's just he hadn't been posting any deadlifts and he's I'll back up to 650 or whatever it was. And what the fuck?
He's a goddamn mutant.
Yeah.
All right. We always ask this, and I'm curious to see with your young fellow and everything, if you've had time to read anything remotely useful. You got anything to share?
Honestly, I've really cut back on. I still buy books, especially ebooks.
Right, because you love fucking piling up books that you don't read. Yeah. Right, what have you bought that you haven't read that's really good?
Oh man, what have I bought? Man. You guys are gonna hate me.
He's looking around at all the books.
It's gonna be a book with swearing in the title. Did you buy and read James Fell's book? Is that what you did?
No. But those books that everybody buys and reads, and they say they love them so much.
Yeah, Twilight.
I still haven't read, and I'm looking at it right now. I still haven't read Atomic Habits.
I haven't read it either. And
James Clear's book. It's really good.
I know it's real. That's why I haven't read it. I know it's really good.
It's not that long, and it's actually an easy read. I mean, it's in my top 5.
I feel I know the whole book though. Yeah. At some point, everyone's made an Instagram post about a certain chapter, and I know everything.
Honestly, James is a great writer, and he's a fucking nice guy. I met him the same time.
Stop making him feel bad.
Yeah, no, I mean, of course, that's why I bought it. I knew it was going to be good. I know that's the thing. I know it's good, and I don't even have to fucking read it. So there you go.
Exactly.
I feel the same way about that book.
Guys, Brian's recommendation is go read Atomic Habits, and maybe you'll read it before he's finished.
And tell me how it is.
Message him on social media and tell him if it's good.
Whatever happened to Cole's notes? They still. I wish they made that for.
I know. Well, if you look at the Wikipedia book sometimes, you get the shitty.
Yeah, I've done that.
Yeah.
They actually have I think it's on Kindle. Their books things, they have little synopsises of really complicated books, and they're whatever 20 pages, and they're pretty good. If you want to cheat the system.
Yeah, well, what I did do actually is because I was dieting recently and doing a bunch of cardio, I got back into podcasts.
Yeah.
But I found myself, I don't know if you guys do this, but when you're dieting, you kind of get back into your old bodybuilding meathead thing.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I do, but all of a sudden I'm listening to all these Dave Palumbo podcast. So I'm hearing all this like total bodybuilding esoteric minutia and insulin protocols, all this shit that's just not applicable to me at all. And I'm of course I'm absorbing it. I'm like, wait a minute, why am I listening to this? Like I really don't need to know somebody's, I don't know. Anyway, their insulin protocol leading up to a show. Like, I really don't need to know this.
Jesus. So. It's funny, a bodybuilder I know, this reminds me of this shit, like a bodybuilder I know, and like I just see him, we're in the change room at the same time at Good Life, right? And Good Life is funny because we're up in Canada, so if you're Canadian, you know Good Life, so they have like these needle, like these insulin needle fucking things you can put these needles in, right? So of course, because there's like a shit ton of diabetics in the gym.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, there's a lot of insulin anyway. And of course, like, people have this misconception. Guys are like shooting up steroids right in front of everybody in the fucking change room. It's not quite how it works. But yeah, he just sit away talking. All of a sudden, out pops a needle, injects something into his bicep. And I look at him, I was like, "Is that insulin?" He's like, "Yeah." Just fuck, there he goes. like it's no big deal, right? And I'm just laughing. And so there's a reason why they have these repositories. And yes, it really does have to do with the fucking bodybuilders that are in there and everybody else. But I suppose it's better than not. So I just saw that and I thought that was fucking hysterical.
I still get a kick out of it. If I go to a gym and I see there's a place to dispose your syringes, I know I'm in a good place. At least,
there's a hack squat and there's a Smith machine, leg press, a few squat racks. Like you're good.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if you have a needle disposal and don't have like a nice hack squat, like you're fucking doing it wrong.
The first gym I went to, I think it was an old World Gym. They used to have a sign above the toilet. I can still remember this. It was like assholes, don't flush your syringes.
What? Why would they do that?
Well, people forget that one of the main reasons why we have this proliferation of gyms like the Good Lifes, like the Golds. Certainly, the Golds were kind of the ones that started it all. The World's Gym. Not to be confused with another chain that's local.
Yeah,
Those shall not be named. But they're changing their names soon. They're totally rebranding themselves, which is kind of funny. So, but World's Gym, Gold's Gym, these are the reasons why we have everything nowadays. All these LA Fitnesses everywhere, these Anytime Fitnesses. And it's because of the bodybuilders. So it all started with Arnold. It all started with the bodybuilders as this aspirational culture of getting jacked and lean. And it's broadened out into being really accessible to the general populace. Absolutely. Like personal training wasn't a thing in the 70s. It was rare if it even existed at all. That's come along a lot later. So Arnold and the popularization of bodybuilding is the reason why, general population fitness is a massive thing. It's why we have this industry we do, and it's why more and more people are healthier and taking care of themselves.
So the needle dispositories are paying homage to them.
And in a twisted way, it is, it's where it all came from. So, you see that, don't judge. Someone else.
No, they're type 2 diabetic, man. Or, sorry, type 1.
Yeah, all these bodybuilders are diabetics.
Type 1 diabetics. It's just surge.
If anybody I know who's really good at getting people, not just contest lean, but just getting normal lifestyle people lean, they have a good grasp of habits, and they have a very good grasp of bodybuilding. So if you're missing one of those, you don't have to become a competitive bodybuilder, but you have to understand those processes. And it's always, it's not just whatever drugs or diet. It's delayed gratification, consistency, day in, day out. Why bodybuilders are so boring is because they've figured this out, that the easiest way to do the same things every day is just to be a boring human. So, but these are things you can pick up from that just make you so much better at coaching fat loss.
Agreed.
One of the real reasons why, we've had you on here 5 times, and hopefully people realize through conversation with you is, and Bryan writes a lot of stuff on his Facebook, so go follow him on Facebook. You pump out tons of really useful, practical information. It's not abstract research science, but it does take pieces from research as it applies to helping people. It is some of the most practical information you will find in our industry. That is why you are highly regarded and highly sought after as a coach. So, I've been reading your stuff for a really, really long time. So, when we always say, hey guys, go follow the people that we have on here, I'm dead fucking serious. There's a reason why Bryan has been on this podcast and a lot of other podcasts as many times as he has. There's a lot of very valuable shit that you as the enthusiast who isn't the coach who listens to us, and obviously coaching is another thing he does really, really well, but just go and have access to this info. So go follow him on your Facebook. What's your Instagram handle?
Do you know
it's Bryan Krahn.
Oh.
Fancy enough. Yeah.
Pretty simple.
He's got all his pretty pictures on there too. You're getting better.
Yeah, it's all my dogs lately, but I'll get better at it.
I think so. 5 times we've had him on, because that was when you're like, oh, I'm just starting out the Instagram thing. And
the first one was actually with Isertel and Spencer Nadolski.
That's the first time he brought you on.
The first time. And then we brought him right on afterwards. We had the Maximus, the gladiator graphic. And then we had you on Drunk on a Park Bench. And that was one where you're telling some really funny stories. And then we had you on with Mega Marty McPhee, who, of course, Marty is hysterical. He's great. And this one's 5. So if you want to hear more of Bryan's stuff, guys, we've had him on tons. And thanks so much for coming on today. And I guess we're going to see you just in a few short weeks here. So
absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we'll go squat together.
Oh, no. All right. Great.
Okay, take it easy.
Shut up and sit down.